a chance to review the minutes that were passed out? Yes?
I have.
Okay. Are there any additions or corrections?
Just a question on my behalf. Under item 8, a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. I wasn't sure that has come to me.
I mailed it to you. Did you not I'm sorry, I mailed it to you. Did you not receive it? I mailed it to your house.
Did you?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Let me know if you don't have it.
Okay.
I'll mail it to you again.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, was it too large, I think, electronically
It
to
was.
send? Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Call for a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Minutes stand. Right.
Yep, minute stand
Let's
is
go.
approved.
Let's make some more minutes.
And seeing no one in the audience for public comment, we'll move on to old business. So everyone did receive some information about the quotes for the local historic designation plaque. There's also a rendering of what the plaque would look like as well. And I'm going to go ahead and...
Do you have any here for me?
I don't have. No.
I was going to go ahead and turn this over to Deborah to present because this was one of her major projects. Oh, you didn't get the agenda package?
No.
Okay.
And I don't have it in front of me.
I don't have it printed.
Okay, you can use mine, but I need that back.
All right.
So you did see the quotes, correct?
did not.
I thought there was correspondence going back and forth per
No,
the
I
agenda.
did not receive anything.
Okay.
Did you not receive your agenda packet?
I
That was in with the
just got
packet?
the agenda. I didn't get any attachments.
Good morning. We're just getting started on the old business, talking
All right,
about the local
reviewing
history.
the Erie Landmark quote here. That's the same quote that they have been
Yes.
providing me with throughout the process, so I see no irregularities there. Okay, I've seen all of these before.
They had your mock-up to go by in order to get the bid, too.
Okay. And then we have a second one from Impact Signs. Which is significantly higher, so I
think the after production costs were higher. So Erie Landmark, it turns out to be about $250 a plaque for residents to buy. And I don't have the paperwork in front of me for the
Here,
other.
Let's look at this together
for the
now.
other,
If this is a decision we must make today, because it was my impression from my earlier conversations with them that it would be closer to 200 and not 250. What drove the price up?
It's back here. You have a finish,
Right.
lacquer,
Right, the name
and
of
then
lacquer.
shipping, and that's only one piece. So obviously, when you combine the shipping, if you order
$79,
small at a time,
$89.
then that price will come down, or be an average of the weight.
I don't remember receiving an extra $20 quote on the patina finish. I do remember the fact that the protective sealant, the anemic lacquer, was going to cost an additional extra dollars. But the $20 I don't recall. So.
Well, that's okay. These are the quotes that the city went out and got, and so these are the ones that we need to review now. So whether they updated their quote or not, these are the official quotes that we need to look at and decide how we want to proceed.
That's possible that prices have gone up since we first looked into this.
But I don't remember them assessing, another separate fee for that finish. I mean, I'd be happy to call them and just go over that with them and say, why are you doing this now?
Well, I think we need to direct, is it John O'Brien,
Yes.
to do that? And we can, if you
Okay,
need
and
further
I can
explanation. If you need
send
further time.
John the paperwork, the original quotes that I have from them, which I mean,
He had that for this quote.
He did?
He had all the information. Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
don't remember seeing that. But.
Well, yeah, if you're not comfortable with moving forward.
Well, I just
today-
feel like as affordable as we can make this, I think that should be one of our motivations here is to make this as
Okay.
affordable as possible.
Right,
So,
and as well designed as possible.
That I don't.
Does anyone else have any comments on some of the quotes that we received for the plaque, or are you missing any information?
we just have the two quotes, right?
Yes.
The only thing we don't have is the actual coin style we decided on. I found some old things. I wasn't sure
The
if Tammy...
coin style
Yeah, we do.
that coin style was the one that was approved and the one I presented to commission.
No, I mean with the VB and...
Nope, that's the one that has
so
Vero
we
Beach.
decided not where...
It has Vero Beach. It was in the packet. It looks like you printed a lot of pages, so you should have it in there. Unless you just printed some.
No, I thought I printed the coin, but maybe not. When I looked at the coin, I thought it didn't have the Vero
Okay.
Beach, so...
Tammy-
That's the only thing,
Tammy
the only
has
question
it.
I had.
It's on the banner.
Is that one?
Yeah, if you don't mind passing down.
Yeah.
It's not. You really can't see
You
it.
can't
on this,
in
but-
that.
That was the only question I
Yeah,
had.
it's on the banner.
It is in the PDF too, but it shows Vero Beach. Because remember, we
Oh,
weren't
okay.
really going to.
Right. I remember that, but I wanted to make sure that I was seeing the right thing. Thank you.
Well, I certainly don't want to rush through it if
No, I think
everyone's not. Do we want to pass that down? Did you?
Sure.
Everyone want to
the
see?
Vero Beach
Yes.
is right here.
Do you anticipate having a meeting next month?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well,
I do.
certainly I can attend to this before our next meeting.
What were the numbers on the?
So on the Erie Landmark quote, the final production cost is $250, but the upfront costs are in there as well in the agenda package. So let's just table this. We can table this, and I think if everyone can just review their paperwork, and if you don't have it, let's make sure you get a copy either today or
I've got it
pretty
somewhere.
soon.
I was actually looking on the phone because it should have been there, but
Yeah.
for some reason it's not.
I did have
Yeah.
a copy, but
I didn't get it
Yeah,
either.
because I,
I
feel
found
like
this
Deborah
one,
really was leading this
but I
project
can't
too,
find
and I
this
want
one.
to. There's really not a huge rush. We can take our time, and I want to make sure this is right and how we want it.
Two questions.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me. And I feel a little bit behind here. I thought I had downloaded that particular document here. Tammy, by the way, to clarify, I did receive the presentation.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
good.
And that's why I'm trying to get away from papers, hard to find them in here. But on the coins, two questions. A, is it possible to get a reproduction that shows Vero Beach a little bit more clearly than what it is? It seems kind of lost in those columns or whatever they are.
May I
That
respond?
would be my first question. And then also, still trying to get up to speed on what's going on. The purpose of the coins, and I understand these coins are 8 inches in diameter, the purpose of them will be to, put them on a background or on a post or bury them in the sidewalk or what?
Remember, he was up.
Yeah, I know, George. The reason I don't actually have one to show you, even a mock-up, is because that to create that first one represents the most expensive part of the process of fabricating. So we have to make we have to be as sure as we can, as confident as we can. This is largely my responsibility. Once the design is approved by all of you, that the people who are going to be responsible for producing this have an excellent idea of what our expectations are. So they will go ahead and make the mold. There's a whole process involved in creating the first one. So I had one. You can look at others from other cities and get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish here. The plaque generally is displayed in a visible spot, typically by the entry to a building, if it is going to be attached to a historic building. So that's the plan.
Okay, that's number two. Number one, going back to number one, is it possible for them, and I understand the commission would not want to authorize a single plaque just to see what it's going to look like. But when they do their graphic design, I would think they would be able to give us a little bit better reproduction than what we're seeing here, whether it's black on white or white on black, or if they use
I have
colors.
some at home that, this is just printed poorly. They're
Yeah,
really not, I'm not providing them with this and saying, okay, let's, show me a miracle.
Right.
There is a much more distinct one floating around somewhere, and I'd be happy to get that to you.
Yeah, I'd like to see something here. Did this come? I mean, this would be ideal if it were in the bronze or in the color or whatever it is that we could actually see.
Exactly, and they will look like that, and they will be in bronze. It will be cast in bronze.
But it would be good to be able to see the product that we're going to be paying for. The other thing that I noticed is that there's some numbers on one of the sheets there, and I guess that's the style of the numbers, and trying to understand what those are. Are we going to go for these numbers that's you got to kind of be turning sideways to read it, or the ones up and down?
They'll be placed at the bottom of each coin, and we're just trying to come up with a font that mimics the font of that period.
Okay. I like Anna's suggestion that we table this. I'd like to see a little bit more on it before we start spending money.
And I'll just add that they will send us a proof before we do anything. So, and I'll make sure that once we get the proof and you've decided on that.
We have two vendors bidding on this, do we?
Well, you just have to go with one.
Just one?
Yeah. I mean, there are two quotes that you have received, but you'll have to decide
they're
which
from the
one you
same
want to go
person.
with.
From the same vendor, though, right?
Yeah.
So where's the other vendor?
But no, there's two in there. The one on,
Paul Zimmerman Foundries.
and then the
Paul Zimmerman Foundries.
there's one on the last
The very
sheet.
last page is
It's very, very small.
someone in a car.
I don't see but just the one.
I think it's Jeremy Wise. I'm not sure what page it would be.
Here it
in
is,
your
right here.
packet, but- No, that's the same person. You're right. Where's the other one?
Right here. But I don't see the final number on it. It just says each subsequent plaque would cost $179, 20 patina finish, 28.
Yeah, that's-
I mean, that's substantially less expensive than the other guy.
Is that not still the Zimmerman quote?
Yeah, that's just
Yeah,
the
that's
same
still
guy.
the Zimmerman quote. If you read on, maybe you don't have the last page. Tammy has the only copy.
Well, they have my copy.
Oh, well, keep looking.
If you pass that down, I'll show
Yeah,
you where it is.
It's on the,
This is
it
the-
just,
Oh,
it
this is
doesn't
yours.
look very official, so perhaps that's
No,
why.
it doesn't.
I-
It just looks like an email.
Yeah.
So Zimmerman, and who's the other bid?
I don't know. I don't have it put on
You
it.
don't have it.
No, but none of us want to
Oh,
print
here.
this large
I make a
agenda
move we
packet.
table this.
I got it.
I found it. Impact
Shabir
Signs.
Musab
Right here.
Impact Signs.
There you go.
Found it. Knew it was somewhere.
They need to rename the company.
There is a motion on the floor to table.
To table this.
So he's substantially less expensive than the other guy.
No, he's substantially more. I think $500 or something, a plaque.
What,
What's the
the
quote for
Impact
this
Signs?
thing? Yes.
The final cost for each, per each.
Oh, yeah, for each one.
Which is exorbitant for private people.
500 and some
Yeah.
dollars for each one.
I'm trying to keep it around 2, which is, I think, industry standard, 150 to 225.
A
In
piece.
some cities, you can, they are available for much more.
Should we get a price from someone else?
No, because trust me, I did exhaustive research. Erie is the company that everybody uses,
Okay.
predominantly across America. So they're global.
Yeah, I'm
So-
really comfortable with Erie too because they have a really long history of producing historic plaques.
Well, that's who we need.
They speak the language
Yeah.
and they stand behind their product.
Sure. I mean, you want to call and beat them up on their price?
And they have, yes, I do. Can you tell? I should be selling cars.
How many of these coins do you think that once the decision on what to go with or how the design or whatever, how many are we talking about purchasing?
We're going to order them as needed.
Yeah, we're not going to actually purchase them as a city. We are going to, we are. We're going to purchase 2 I think we were going to have one for the Heritage Center since that's a city-owned building. And then the one we would have fabricated for the diesel plant we mentioned, but we keep that in the planning office so we could show individual property owners what the plaque will look like. And then individual property owners will be able to purchase a plaque as if their home is designated as a local landmark. Now, other programs could spring up with local nonprofits where they say, oh, we want to help you buy one, or I can see that happening down the road. But that's what's proposed. And we could do it, once we have a number of designations, we could say, okay, we need to have at least 3 people that want to buy a plaque before we're going to order. So we're not paying that shipping cost each. They're not paying that shipping cost each time.
George, it becomes like a badge of honor. It's something that people clamor to have. It makes a property very distinguished to have
Run
one.
it to the side of the building, usually by the entry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea. I just would like to see a better rendering of it, if you will.
Sure, we will get you one, and I promise you'll love them.
And then I guess once we have that to decide on, how the print is to appear, in what font.
Okay. So you will work with John O'Brien then through John with Erie?
I will.
Okay. And anytime, if you have that rendering, you can send it to all of us, right? Is that correct? She could send that to you,
Send it to me. And
to
I'll send it
Tammy, and
out.
Sammy should send it to all of us.
All right.
So, we'll
So
have
I
time
move
to
we
digest.
table this.
There's a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay, that's great discussion. Just to update you, so the next item, I mentioned that the historic planner for the city of Boynton Beach I confirmed with him. His name's Warren Adams, and I confirmed with him that he'll be able to be here at our meeting in November.
Thanks.
November 12th, in order to provide us with a presentation about some of the projects he's been doing. He joined them a couple of years ago. I gave you a little bio, a little article in there about the work he's been doing. And during our CLG training that was carried out by Michael Zimney, Michael talked about Warren and the projects they were doing. And they're really centered around community education, which is a recurring theme amongst our board, and how we can encourage local property owners to designate their historic properties and just raise awareness about the significance of our local history. So I think he'll come with some great ideas too that we could apply here in our own community. So I'm looking forward to his visit, and I would like to see us something, Tammy, if we could, a little press release showing that he will be here to speak as well, because I'd like to see people from the community join, and some outreach to the local historic nonprofits or cultural organizations.
Do you want me to put something together and I'll let you look at it?
That'd be great. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, the McCanish Park Survey Grant. I will just recap, and I have lots of gifts for everyone here. I had a great trip to Tallahassee, spent a couple days there, which included the day of the grant review and the ranking of the grants. Let's see where to start here. I think I really wanted to share this information with you because it's such a good experience going up there and meeting the people who are involved in the process. And this is the list of the grant panel that reviewed the certified local government grants and also the small matching grants, which we only applied for certified local government. So I'm sorry it has my notes on it, but I realized I didn't have a clean copy, so I had scribbled on it a little bit, but I just thought you'd find it interesting. One of the panel members actually lived in McCanish Park for a couple of years, and she was just here for Vero Beach High School reunion. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Good timing.
Yeah. And some of these people I did know, and some of them I don't. But you'll see as well, there was a member from Fort Pierce, too. So that was very, of course, she'd be familiar with our community. I'm going to pass out to you as well a copy of the score grid. So basically, the process is for the panel to review the grants and discuss them together in an open forum such as this. And there you go.
They put this online, don't they? I think you can pull this up online.
I believe so. I got that right there. I mean, you had to wait for the rankings, and it came right hot off the press, and they passed it out, and we stayed there till 5:30. Started at 9 o'clock and stayed there till 5:30 p.m. But I thought we did really well. I was happy. We came in 10th out of about 17 of the CLGs. If you look at the grants that were funded ahead of us, you'll see most of them did have that education component or were kind of a, a high need area as well. You have like an archaeological parks virtual application and whatnot. There was only, I think, City of Melbourne came in ahead of us, a couple rungs ahead of us with their survey. And they're much further, not much further, but they're further ahead of us on some of their districting. They do have a historic district as well. But for our first showing, I thought we did really well. Unfortunately, here's the bad news. There, in the Certified Local Government Grant Program, the federal government there's only about a little over 100,000. So really only the first probably the first 3 will get funded, and they may even have to adjust some of the funding there. And these are community. Look at City of St. Augustine came in first. I mean, these are communities that have a long history of preservation. So I think we did fantastic, honestly. And they did say they're going to continue, that the Bureau staff is going to continue to work towards getting full funding for all the grant programs, through the budget and the legislature. So we'll just have to see how it pans out by February, March. I think we'll know whether the grant will be funded or not. And in the meantime, we may just want to approach the city and start talking about ways that we could fund these types of projects, because the more I thought about it, I don't want to see this waiting another 2 years before it gets implemented. I mean, already it'd be a year from now before we could even start the project if we were funded. So, are there any questions on the grant process?
Anna, thank you for taking the time to go up there and to be that involved.
Yes,
you're
very
welcome.
much so.
Welcome. And, I had some history there. I knew a lot of folks there, and I was able to also, something important to mention. We had several projects in the community as well that were represented. The Indian River County Historical Society had a small matching grant in for the preservation of the fire tower. It's out on 4th Street. And then obviously OVASC too. They had a grant in, and Andy Hemmings was up in Tallahassee representing that grant. So
how did they fare?
They did really well. The staff and everyone seems so excited about that project. I mean, they're so excited about that project.
Our archaeological project?
Yes, the old Vero Man site. I mean, they are so excited. So they're getting the funding that they need to move forward. And, we'll have to figure out as a board, too, how we can help highlight the local projects. I think that's a great opportunity, for us to help support these other organizations. So it was a good showing from our community, that's for sure. And then I just brought you a few gifts I wanted to pass out. There's another pamphlet in there that marks a page. That one's just for you.
Give it back.
I don't think I have enough. I couldn't get enough copies to go around. I might have one, actually. But it marks the page that shows Indian River County on. And I do. But this is the Florida World War II Heritage Trail publications commemorating 70 years since the ending of World War II. But it's just for your leisure, for your fun to read through and see. These are the type of publications that the state puts out as well, and it does include our area. And there are different themes as well that they put out. So that's just, you can actually give that to her for the record. I forgot. And I brought Gail, a mouse pad. It's all free stuff. Tammy, a mouse
Oh,
pad.
thank you.
All right. They started looking at me funny, so I had to stop too.
Yeah.
But it was good, and I had a chance to visit some sites too, and just see how they handle the visitor experience. Went to Mission San Luis. I only have one of those, but they have their rack card that's done really nicely. Something we may want to think about as we go along. And then I do have, you can pass those out. The Tallahassee Trust put together a tour guide for one of their historic districts, and I thought it was just something we can keep in our file as a good example of a historic tour brochure, which is a project that we might consider in the future. Okay. Well, if there are no questions, we can move on to the next item of business, which is the Historic Preservation Program brochure. Deborah, would you like to? Has everybody had a chance to look over the mock example of a brochure that Deborah put together? I know it was sent out just a couple days ago, but you also have one in front of you if you didn't get a chance to.
Thank you, Anna. Basically, what I did was I pulled information, like I said before, from the site, although I don't think it says on there yet about that we're a CLG now. Mm-hmm. I don't recall, so I made a note of that. What I also did was I looked in the meantime at the economic benefit impacts that the state put together, and I contacted Suzanne Hunt and asked her about permission. I saw 3 paragraphs there that I thought would be helpful. What I was focusing on was local interest and how we would garner local interest. What would actually grab someone's attention and why would they want to do this? So the brochure you see is just strictly information. Now, I had something I sent Tammy, but it's not on here noted. I had, she added the U, but in here at the top I had put in parentheses the idea of a paragraph leading into, more conversational, more friendly, hello, how are you type paragraph, but I hadn't thought of that yet. So, because to me it was too strict. Once we put it together, pulling from the original information I pulled from, it was too, was just too much, just information and not friendly. So I was trying to think, so I was trying to think this is good, but how else can we do, because we have to have the pertinent. So how do we also make it more, approachable, user-friendly? So the 3 other paragraphs, I'll pass this around. I've got one circled and then one highlighted, just to give you an idea. She also told me there's an update, Suzanne Hunt did, and what I need to do to get permission to add these to the brochure. I just thought it was more useful information. The other thing Tammy and I talked about was, instead of putting, and I was thinking actually more of a brochure that's
like a rack card?
Well, eventually, not originally. Jeffrey, do you mind if I see that? Thank you. This you can keep. That's yours. That's his. But this idea, more of something like this in the front as opposed to that. So if you don't mind if I borrow this too to look at it some more. But what we were talking about was putting the stamps that phones can read, and I'm not quite sure of the term. But we talked about that to direct people's attention to the websites, that informational websites and things like that. Or if we had a list or photographs of homes that have been designated, or something like that, to give more interest. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things that. And again, these are the 2 paragraphs, and that's the. And even if maybe Tammy makes a copy of that and.
Yeah, definitely. I too have a summary sheet of benefits of historic preservation, so I'll look for that and send that to you. It has bullet points.
Okay, and I was looking at
it has a few more than they have.
These others that
yes.
Did you send these out?
I did.
Okay,
yeah.
I was looking at these too this morning, so I noticed some other things too, because the whole idea is to grab their attention and keep them interested. But I also know we have to give pertinent information. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, but we don't need to get all the information, so I think that's great. I like the idea of maybe just doing a rack card that has
leads them into it.
Grabs their attention with some really pretty pictures of historic buildings in town, or a vignette or something, and maybe it has a historic photo in there, as well, or something like that.
But I thought this could be the leader to the actual. We want to do an actual brochure, but I thought this could be the leader to start getting people's attention. And I mainly, like I said, wanted to concentrate on local interest and local designation. I didn't think that locally, right off the bat, people would be so much concerned about how it impacts the state or how many jobs it creates and that kind of thing. I don't think they're going to be as interested so much as how much it's going to affect them and benefit them. So that's what I was trying to concentrate on. So I thought we could take it from here, get your ideas, and move from there.
Deb, I think, so you're saying this is the first step. I think what you really probably want to do is have something that is more visual. You don't overload them with information.
Well,
and specifics.
This is not even close to what would be the finished product. And we had talked about photographs. The first thing I wanted to see was how would the information itself look, because when you see it like something like this in a larger piece of paper, or even this, which is not quite what we were thinking about, it visually, you sometimes when you're speaking about it, you need to see something visual. So this, I thought, was a start. But photographs, I'm trying to remember now, because we were talking about with the computer and why we're having some concerns and issues, why we can't put some of this stuff on the website. So with the brochure, though, we can be a little more creative. Right. Okay. I figured that's the dressing, the icing on the cake later. Just decide what we wanted to say first and take it from there.
Yeah.
So what is your intent here? What do you hope to accomplish? This is just inviting people's interest.
Right, grabbing their attention and then moving from there.
Okay.
That was the first start, because I knew we didn't have the funding yet to do an actual brochure. So, but it's also a good exercise, because when we are ready to do the brochure, we've done a lot of the work anyway.
Super.
Yeah. And it could easily be placed in like the chamber or at the Main Street or at the historical society, something like that, just to raise awareness about the program, simply. I would like to see then another brochure done that talks about process, and that one doesn't have to be as pretty. If you look at the way Melbourne does it, we do it differently, but that has more wording to it. I mean, they did add some of the historical sites of interest, but we might, I guess what I'm trying to say is we might be able to do that in-house, actually, because you just take the 8.5 by 11 and...
Well, that's the other thing. If you guys would prefer an actual... I mean, we could actually, if Tammy's got the funds or the budget, and to actually start a mock-up of a brochure we'd like to eventually mass produce.
I say we mock
instead
up
of this.
No, I don't say. I say we do both.
Okay.
I say we do both.
So the brochure, you want to see more... Well, I do too. I mean more information.
And we don't have to stress out reinventing the wheel. Everybody has done this to either made theirs very user-friendly or just very arcane. So you've got to go through the...
Right, which is kind of what I've
look at what
started.
everyone else has done and decide which one, reflects our motivation.
And I think once we have
community.
a couple prototypes, then we can have something to present to the city to ask for funding.
Sure.
No, is that a good process? Okay.
All right, so
do you need
to work on it?
assistance with the brochure, and you want to do the rat card, or do you want to do both?
I'd like to finish the starter card.
Yes.
Because it would at least get the interest, and then everything we're using and doing now, put it towards the brochure.
Okay.
That we were not.
Sounds good.
But if I could have a little more, and again with Tammy, because I know we have to discuss things here at the meeting. Can they send me ideas and just to me, or how does that work?
No, if they send them to me, then I can send them to you.
All right. Or would it be easier if they send them to you and I came to your office?
Yeah, maybe we sit down and
because we met at
Yeah.
Tammy's office. So.
Deb, just two things quickly while I'm thinking about it. Can we use, what does everyone think about? I take issue with historical as opposed to historic. Historical sounds too much like hysterical. it's just too much.
Well, that, and I have
typically-
actually gotten corrected before by a
It's
professor.
historic.
So yeah,
It is
should be
historic? All right, then
It
we'll do
is.
that.
Yeah.
So if we could stick with a historic, try to remember that. And also even the first paragraph, and I agree with you, way too formal, way too severe. What we're trying to combat here is that image of us being some kind of secret
Well, that's the
police.
thing. Not even
that's
that.
what this promotes. I think we need to better show ourselves as being partners, as being consultants, not the ultimate authorities.
This is this
elective
wording.
process.
All this wording is straight from the website. So none of it is my words.
That was me.
existing-
This is our existing website.
Okay.
And
We're in
none of
trouble.
None of this.
No
None of this
one's
is
buying.
mine. And I think part of it has to do with how we. I think part of it is how we have to present ourselves as far as a local board. Anyway, some of it we don't have a
Yes.
choice.
We want
but
friendly,
my point
we
is,
want approachable.
But my
and-
point is, and it's not here, like I said earlier. I had put a little, in parentheses that we need to have a lead-in paragraph that was more welcoming, friendly, and because when I saw this, I said, no, it makes it sound like it's all about us, which was not my intention. But I was trying to figure out a pattern of a process. So this is strictly a beginning, and again, it's all from the website, and it's pieces. It's not. It's like 5 pages, I think, our website. I'm not sure. So the intention was just this is some of the information I thought was pertinent. If y'all have other information you want to add, then we need to do that. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure that it came across more as, yes, we're here to help you. We're here to show you what we've done. Yes, this is exciting. This is a great way of life, that kind of thing. So that's the other input I need. This is the very basic information, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, and then add the other. And that's what I'm looking for is the other.
And I've already been mentioning the website, already rethinking and kind of writing and designing in my own head because it's been 2 years now, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think so.
It's time for something different. And I would like to see us work with Holt or someone at the city too, because I notice the citywide website doesn't have a lot of pictures that represent
Tammy
any
can explain
historic
that.
buildings
Yeah.
or history.
We are actually in the process of updating our website, probably within the next year or so. There were some things that we had to make to the changes to the website at this point because we were not ADA compliant. So you'll see that we have made some changes
I did, yeah.
to the website, and that was so that we could become compliant with that. But yeah, we definitely want to make some changes to the website.
Okay.
I think we talked about that too, about working on the website some more too,
Oh,
updating it. And the CLG, I think, is not on there, which is something new for us.
Yeah.
Question. I have a lot of questions. Press Journal had a couple articles a couple of days ago, and I know talking about the brochure that doesn't appear as though we're close to coming up with a final publication or final product for publication. But I noticed that the Press Journal is going to be doing a hardbound coffee table book, Vero Beach Memories.
I saw that.
That would probably be an ideal location for something with regard to historic preservation. That we would not have a brochure at this time may or may not be material. My thought is that perhaps there would be something in there, if nothing more than a quarter page or an eighth page or even a business card page, directing the people that are reading that magazine to the fact that Vero Beach now is designated as a historic city, and that people with questions or comments or anything that they might be able to contribute would be in contact with, I presume, what that would be, planning department. I thought of that possibility and whether we're too late or if it's something that the commission would even want to consider. Would we still be too late? That was a thought. The other thing, too, is I noticed that this is going to be put out in a number of different places. The Indian River County Historical train station, I believe, was one of them. The library, that might be another couple locations that the brochure, when the time comes, is distributed to, that the people can see and seek out further information on.
With the train station, what are you asking now again?
Just have some of our rack cards, or whether we do a brochure or whatever. We had talked about having them in the city lobby, but there are many other places that I think people go that could be exposed to the fact that we now are designated, and they might want to become involved. I see that the Commission's goal is to interest and enlist as many people as we can with their properties that might be designated historical. And obviously, if you can get your word out to 10 locations, it's much better than 2 or 3 or 1. Or so it's just a thought for down the road where we might put this publication.
I see what you're saying. I agree, yes. And that's listed on our Register for Historic Places within the city. The train station, is it operated by the Indian River
County Historical Society?
Right. So I know Anna brought this up about the idea of cooperation with the other historic societies, use the right terminology. And so I agree. We've talked about this before, I think at the last meeting. And I think it would probably be a good idea, and I think we've talked about this before also, inviting leaders of those organizations to come to our meeting and discuss that. So with the calendar, we talked about the calendar, and talk about how we can cooperate with each other and work with each other and share what each other's doing. So
it's an excellent idea.
So I think that would be a good way to start doing that. And the brochure might surprise you. We might be able to get at least this done to start, which is my intention. The brochure itself, we need the money. We don't, as a commission, the city council the funding comes from them. So we don't really have a budget. So we have to, we'll have to be creative. And that's why I wanted to start this way first. And it may even have even less than what I'm working on. This might all be saved for the actual brochure, but we definitely want to grab people's attention and hold it and keep their interest. So that's my intention.
It's a good idea to enlist the other people that are involved in historic work.
And we can certainly reach out to them. I mean, I know I'm already in contact, and Deborah's on a board of the Heritage Center, and I think each one of us are somehow involved with some local historic organizations. George, you mentioned the book that the Press Journal is going to be publishing, Vero Beach Memories, you said?
Correct.
I'm not sure how we could fit in or partner, but I mean, it's worth a discussion.
Knowing the Press Journal, they usually charge for everything that goes into their magazines and their books. I don't know if there would be a charge or whether they would be willing to insert something. And again, I don't think we're prepared at this point, from what I'm listening to, with photographs and a lot of verbiage and everything, but something that basically goes before people's eyes. It says, I didn't know we had our city was designated as a historic community.
Right.
Something to kind of, you've seen in the papers before, coming soon, and that's all they say, coming soon. And it gains the people's attention. And maybe something not along that line, but something under the same venue that, hey, did you know, or whatever, and directing people. If this book is going into dental's offices, doctors' offices, and going to be distributed throughout the city and the county, I think it would be smart if we had nothing more than a very bottom of the page blurb in bold font or whatever, directing people
George, has it gone to print, or is this just being put together, or what's?
I think
what
it's
was your
being put.
impression?
It really doesn't say. It doesn't give
Okay.
deadlines. If you'd care, I can contact the Press Journal and try to determine what their publication schedule is, what their requirements are to place something in there, and bring that back to you. If we're not too late by the next meeting.
Right. No, that'd be great. Also, we might be able to put something small in the Your News Weekly with a photograph, like you were talking about the Did You Know, talking about the city being certified as a certified local government.
This is great.
Yeah,
This
We
is
saw that, yeah.
this is really a great idea. It would get. I think what it does for those of us that are perhaps a little bit longer in the tooth than others, something like this brings back the memories of childhood and what it would be to be there in 1925, roaming those fields or hanging out downtown or whatever. I just I find a particular draw to this type of a photograph.
Yeah, it spoke volumes to me when I received it. So.
I was wondering about the possibility of at least putting our website, if nothing else, when they do their article about Vero Beach and its history, you could at least reference the fact that the city has a Historic Preservation Commission and a website directing it, and a little blurb, like you said, did you know, if we could do something like that. And I don't know if the publication hasn't been put together yet, and if we have a little time, if we could figure a little blurb to send in.
Well, it sounds like George is going to follow up with
I'll
the
get right
paper,
on this,
so-
and rather than waiting to the next meeting, I'll fire off something to Tammy, and she can distribute,
right.
what I found out.
I understood that. My
Thank
point
you.
was if the publication closes out before our next meeting, then we lose the window. So
Right.
if you could let Tammy know
I will do
that
that.
the window's closing, and then I guess if we as a board could decide this, Tammy could inform Anna, and if we agree the idea of at least to get a blurb in there about the website, and did you know, or something, a little, this is in Vero Beach.
Well, that's something I guess you really could decide today. And then, of course, if we needed to have a special call meeting, you could always do that also.
Otherwise, because if the window's still open, we might as well see if we could take an opportunity, was my point.
Well,
I have somebody that's out of town now, but she works for me part-time. She's my marketing and advertising, and she has done a lot of work for the Press Journal, has been in newspaper work for 20 years. She was one of the people that write about businesses. And she'll be back in Sunday or Monday. If there is a possibility that we can do something, then I would get her to write something pretty quickly, which I know she has the capabilities of doing, and then I can send that out for anybody's comments or changes or no, we don't want to do it.
Okay. So, yeah, you can send that to Tammy. That'd be fine.
Okay.
And she'll get it to us. And then we can always call a special call meeting if we need to. All right.
you,
Any
George.
other comments on the brochure? Or?
Whatever it costs.
Somebody else is paying.
Just quickly, I want to remind everyone that this Saturday is the Cultural Arts Village charrette. I have a few of these brochures, and I know you gave me one already. And then all next week, they will be having the studio as well at the Hampton Inn in Miracle Mile. You'll get a chance to watch the urban designers in their process of their work, and also you can provide input. If you can't make it to the charrette, you can provide input when you visit them and you see their drawings. But it's a really good opportunity to contribute to the vision of the Cultural Arts Village, which is also a historic neighborhood as well. So also on the agenda, this was really just for your information. It's a really great opportunity if you're available. The National Trust for Historic Preservation Conference is coming up in November, and we provided the link to you because they're allowing virtual attendees. They have different sessions, and they're free. So it's just a huge opportunity because they have some really great sessions depending on the topic that you're most interested in. All right, moving on. Is there any item under new business that's not on the agenda that you have? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to planning and development matters. Did Gail?
We have nothing new.
Okay.
Anna, can we back up just a second under old
Yes,
business?
I'm sorry.
The sign, or the replica of the sign that Monty showed us
I was going to ask
last
about
meeting. I'd be curious to know what the how the product design is coming along. More importantly, once it has come along and it is ready for a review, what would really be nice would be to have a cutout of it and actually take it out and putting it on or atop a sign to see what it looks like. When I saw that the other day, I think it looks very nice. I think it'll be attractive. My question is it going to be so out of proportion with the street signs that or are the street signs going to be replaced with this, or just have question with regard to size, not so much design, but the size of it and how it's going to appear in person, if you will.
I'm sorry, George, what are we talking about?
The sign on top of the sign for the street signs. And Monty brought a
To bring
mock-up.
back the historic
Right.
names of the streets.
Monty had a mock-up of the on the white piece of paper. That was the size of the sign.
Right.
And I know that. Do we have any of those installed yet somewhere? Where there's an no. I don't,
As a regular street sign?
right. Has anyone done that yet at all?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. I know we were waiting for information from Monty so we could talk about it again, but I don't think we received anything, have we?
No, I'll follow up with Monty on that project.
Yeah. The two things I'm concerned about was something that appeared to be so large. Number one is aesthetics and how it's the proportionality of it. But also, as importantly, the area that it will present to storm winds and the potential that, we might be causing the city a liability by having something so large that would cause issues in 40, 50, 60, 80-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah,
I'd
my
be a little-
understanding,
that
it's
big.
not that much larger than the existing signs, but definitely he just said it looks larger when you're up close. He said it, otherwise the proportion looks the same, but I would think we go through a process. As I understand, the city has its own sign making machine, so I wouldn't think the cost of fabrication for a mock-up would be, that tremendous. But I will talk to Monty about that. We definitely want to see the proportions and make sure they fit. We could also talk to other communities that do this and may have a double sign. Ones along the east coast of Florida that face hurricanes and whatnot. We can do some research.
I'm
with
sure
that.
they're familiar with the standards, and we have seen them in other cities.
Yeah.
George, I pulled up just so we could be returning back to your topic of the book, if we might, please, Anna.
Yes.
And it looks like the Press Journal is doing, indeed, a coffee table hardbound book. And it's $39.99. They invited the public to come and submit photos. They had 2 dates for those submissions. People were allowed to bring up to 10 photographs. The Historical Society is also involved in this. That was August the 29th and August the 31st. So I don't
too
know.
late.
They're probably still sorting and assembling, I would think, to do something of this magnitude. They're not going to do it on the spot.
Right.
So I think if we politely ask, they would probably allow us to put
See if we can get a
something in there.
2x3 or a 1x3 or a 6x6 or something in there.
Maybe once it might help us we need to come up with exactly what our motivation is here. What do we hope to say, if indeed we can say anything? This is largely photographs. It says they're working with the Historical Society, heirloom quality, keepsake book. So obviously we're not going to be able to run something that looks like an ad in there. Let's see here.
Unless they have an information page.
I don't know, perhaps. So, private collectors. Similar to the Indian River Lagoon book of last year, this hardcover, full-color picture book, 144 pages. 8.5 inches high, 11 wide. You can pre-order.
Okay.
Online
Well,
ordering, so I don't know. I mean, we can ask.
yeah, I think if George would just, continue to follow up as we discussed, and we'll figure out what role that we can play. It may be, it's a good connection to make in any sense for our board to make with the Press Journal, making sure they know who we are and what we do, and look for opportunities of where we can communicate to the public about those things. Who we are,
It might be
what we do.
more useful. I wonder if they would allow us to do a small, if we do print this card up, we could do invitation to designate and just have them tuck one into each book they sell.
Well, again, we just have to work with the budget numbers, and it all comes back to that. So it's a good idea. Good idea. Okay. Any more old business? Since we kind of reopened that old business. Okay. So moving on, we didn't have any new business, no planning and development matters. I just had a few items under chairman's matters. The first one, we were going to talk about goals. I don't know how everyone's schedule is doing today. If anyone had ideas they wanted to share about, I think we pretty much did share a lot of ideas. The goal is community outreach, education, and we talked about a few ways to accomplish that. But I don't know if any members had something they wanted to share at this meeting. Otherwise, we could talk about it at the next meeting.
I think the projects we're working on now are pretty significant. We don't need to overload ourselves and introduce a lot of other ideas.
Okay. I would like to continue the discussion, however, at least next month for some planning for Historic Preservation Month in May. How we can really use that month to showcase our commission and what we do and to support the other local historic organizations. So my second item I already talked about, that was the virtual attendance at the National Trust for Historic Preservation Conference. And then I just wanted to bring up local historic designations again. And that was really for staff's benefit. Gail, last month we talked about, we knew of 4 or 5 property owners from our previous workshop that were really interested in designation, but it's hard because staff is saying you can't be proactive and reach out, and those people want to do it, but they need their hand held a little bit. And so we feel like we're in this stalemate of still not being able to encourage people to designate their properties. We brought them in. We had a workshop. There were 4 or 5 that were really excited, and we need some ideas on how we can sort of bridge that gap and get them in.
Of those people, there was one individual who came to the office, and we discussed, the process.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone comes into our office, we're always willing to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen anything.
So there's no follow-up we can do and say, oh, you showed interest, a few months ago about designating your home. Is there anything that we can do, that I can do to help you with that process? Are you still interested in designating?
Is it possible, I'm guessing this is not even part of policy, and if we have to make it policy, but can we do follow-up letters from the planning department? We had enjoyed your meeting with you, enjoyed the conversation, whatever we need to say. We're happy about your interest in historic designation. Do you need more information? How can we be more helpful? Would you like a follow-up visit? Something like that. Could we send a follow-up letter that way?
I'd be glad to mention that to Tim. I'm sure we could send one letter out. I mean, we've had one person.
No, it will not break the budget. But if that's the case, then I think that would be a good way to at least show them, hey, we remember you. We're still interested. Are you still interested?
Well, we're stuck as board members because we're not allowed to engage in too much discussion about the designation, we've been told. Mm-hmm. So, I have people mention it, but I can't pull them in. I can't really give them information and say, here, I'll help you with the application. Mm-hmm. because of my limitation as a board member.
It's
And the
weird. We can't
application is
solicit.
simple.
We're not
The
at
whole
liberty to
process.
discuss specifics pertaining to specific properties, but we can talk about the process, can we not?
That's a question for
Yeah.
the attorney, but no.
I thought we could, as long as we weren't talking about specific
Yeah, the general
properties.
process,
General.
yes.
So,
And we're more than willing to talk to anyone who comes into our office and provide the information.
But I think once they've talked to you, that's the time period where it's no longer general process because they've shown an interest. So we still couldn't do the follow-up, could we? I don't think so.
Not if it's something that's going to come back
Right,
before
see,
this
it
board
might-
to vote on.
So that's why I thought about the letter.
Are we able, so we're not able to solicit historic designations from folks. Are we able to, and so that means we can't call them and say, remind them or say,
That's right.
I mean,
have
could-
you,
You could just say you can talk to the planning department, about the process.
yeah. I mean, like call the folks that I know and say, oh, whatever happened with that historic designation.
Yeah, I mean,
I
maybe
guess
if
we
you
can do
just-
some of that.
You could, and maybe you want to get with the planning department and talk to them
Yeah.
about it. Just don't get into specifics.
Okay. All right. At least I could get that communication going again. Because you know how we all are. We're all busy and we are trying to survive ourselves. And it's just, but we've got to get over that first hurdle to where we start getting some of these designations in, especially when people show interest in the process. So,
Question.
okay. Yes.
Is there a list of properties that would be compatible with historic designation? Does somebody have a list compiled of, I think the first requirement is it must be 50 years old. So do we have anything in the
There was
files in the city or the tax files or the planning files or
There was
whatever
a
that?
historic property survey done in the 90s.
Uh-huh. So there is a list.
Yeah, that's
But
our
it's-
baseline for what could be historic, but we don't have a list of then what's been demolished and
Right.
some of those. But it's a good start. It's a good start.
So the question would be then, if this letter were to be sent, I would think we'd send it to more than just the 3 or 4 or 5 people that came to the workshop. Perhaps you would find the landlords or the owners of all these properties and send that letter to each one of them.
I think that's a great idea. Just do a blanket email even to every property that's over a certain age and just say, invitation to designate, your.
I like a
maybe-
personal handwritten letter, or not handwritten, but a letter. I think it's much more personal than an email would be. I think your email would be maybe used as the follow-up, but a nice letter written on, city stationery or however.
I think for hundreds of properties, that might be a little ambitious, but it
I
was
have
great.
somebody that can write the text, and if we're talking about 42-cent stamp for 100 properties, as someone interested in seeing this thing move forward, my company will foot the bill for the postage.
And we could focus on specific subdivisions because I'm imagining the information will come from the property appraiser, so we won't have email addresses most likely, but we can sort it by subdivision in that sense.
I've
to
been
target
longing to
people.
do this. Just send it out, and then it would be your discretion. People will come to you, and at that point, they're either eligible or they're not.
Would you like to talk to Tim? So that, because that would end up falling on your list to use the survey list and against what the property appraiser's information says. Do you have any priorities right now, George, or do you want to provide Gail with a list of priority neighborhoods instead of sending them all out, or do you want to send them?
I'm not even specific to neighborhoods as
You need
much
a
as I
number
am
first.
to properties, because we might have a neighborhood of 80 homes and find that there are only 2 properties within that neighborhood that would be eligible. So I would,
We
Right,
are
I
not
was
in a
just-
position to make that distinction. All we know is that they're a certain age. We can't selectively mail them out to the ones that we think are most significant.
We can't.
We can't do that. We can't drive up, look at these properties. That is not, something that we're allowed to do.
We have a list of properties.
I know. I saw those
Yeah.
brows knit.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
We
trying.
can't do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the
board members.
Sunshine Law.
Yeah.
I know.
And reading a little bit out of it,
ongoing.
if we're fact finding and if we're making recommendations, but we have no decision making,
That's considered
I wonder where does
intrusive.
that
We can't do
line?
that.
Where's that line drawn?
Well, that really is where we rely on Gail to help us too, or the planning department. As a CLG, she's our liaison, and we're going to, need to rely on her. But we have the baseline of information, and it only provides a property address. So it doesn't, and we need current owner names. So that's what I was suggesting. I'm thinking from a very practical term on how to get these letters out to the right people, is to start with the survey list, and Gail can work with the property appraiser database or whatever you use to link those up. How about you want to start with a number of properties we're talking about from that original survey first?
How many were there?
I don't remember. Do you have them? 300? Around there? Between 3 and 4?
And that was in 92?
90, I think.
At 1990,
So-
and that's everything built 1940 and before.
But think about this. So now we're going to have a significant volume of homes that are eligible just based on
Since
date
then.
of construction alone, in addition to those 300.
Yeah, and you won't
So-
know because the data, it's not just historic because it was built more than 50 years ago. It has to be significant
Yes,
for its
but
architecture.
That filtering will happen once the interest is there and the property owners
Right,
actually
then Gail will-
contact planning and zoning. And
But we can't say your property is historic. You say it might be or may
Right.
be.
I guess that's why we've talked about doing the survey too, and that's partly why we applied for the McCansh Park. We still need to do a citywide survey again. We've talked about that, and the only one we have is the one that's been done before. And if it were to be any kind of official list, that's it. So if we try to add to it, then you're right, we're speculating because we don't know. At least we have that one based on the work that's already been done, and we can work off of that list.
Right.
And it's a start. And if nothing else, Deborah, like you'd said before, it would pique people's interest, those who are interested, and then talk to others. So it's a start anyway. And I guess I can't see where we would be able to add on because I've questioned whether my home would qualify. So there's things we have to find out because we haven't done the surveys. And I say stick with the original list. I don't know what budget we have. Back to the 300 letters. With Tammy, you've said before you have some monies you have to work with, but I'm not sure how much, and I don't know if it's a planning department that would come from them, and if it's all right for a board member to donate,
Oh,
if that's
that's a good question.
I really want this to be all-inclusive. I don't want to create the impression that we are only interested in the historic neighborhoods. If this relevance is
just a-
based on, but now you're saying use the original survey, which only dealt with these handful of properties.
But
It was a citywide survey, and it surveyed every building in the city limits.
Did it?
Built
Yes.
1940 and before.
Central
Yes.
Beach too?
Yes.
Okay.
It was the entire city.
I apologize.
It's okay.
I was not.
I
aware of
mentioned
that.
subdivisions. I was just thinking practically of merging information. That was
But I think
So-
everyone should get a copy of that letter. If
But
indeed
all we
are
can do
going
is
to-
the original.
Yeah, if we
we
use the
haven't done the
survey.
new, was my point. At least with the original survey, we're covered as far as we're not selecting properties. That's something that's already been done. Adding to it, we become selective. So we have to wait till we do the new survey.
Why don't we just, if we're doing an email there, I mean, it's nothing. Send it out to every property in Vero Beach. We don't have to.
we will not have everybody's email address, so that's off the table. To try to get everybody's email address, that's not going to happen. What we do have
We have
is
to do a
property
hard mailing.
appraisers.
Yeah, property
Yeah.
appraiser site with
If
addresses
you
of
wouldn't mind,
properties.
Gail, if you could get with Tim and talk about our ideas here and come up with a proposal for our next meeting, That's
a way
what
to
I
accomplish
would
this.
suggest, because Gail will know, what property she's dealing with. There will also be some cleanup that staff's going to have to do to that list because there have been demolitions since that time, which is really updating the survey in some ways. Unless you want a homeowner to get, there's a new house and there was a historic house before. Now there's a new house. You don't want that homeowner to get that letter.
Well, I
Right?
don't think we need to. I don't think the letter needs to be written in a way that informs the homeowner, the property owner, of them having a house that may be significant or may be eligible. I think we could do something that is fairly generic and just say, you are a property owner in Vero Beach. If your property is over 50 years old, it may be historically significant. We invite you, your interest, call the blah, blah, blah. I mean, that could even be a little thing that's maybe included with your final property tax notice.
George, you mentioned you had someone that.
And then people
Sorry.
will know if they have a new house. Obviously, they're not going to call you.
Okay.
Or if that was indeed a site where an older building was that was removed, they're not going to, follow up on that.
Good idea.
Otherwise, we're going to be bogged down in this forever.
Yes. Did you mention that you have someone that would draft the letter?
Sure,
Do you want to work on that?
we can do that.
Okay.
I can start on it Monday. She's not back into town till next week.
Now, Tammy, that's something that George could work directly with Gail on?
Sure.
Okay.
And I know one of the questions that Mrs. Daig had brought up, we have had in the past people come through and sponsor certain things like postage and that sort of thing, so that's not a problem.
Okay, good.
As long as it doesn't get too much.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Anyone have anything else they want to mention for members' matters?
I would ask one thing, Tammy. She's probably the most familiar person with regard to government and the sunshine, and I certainly don't want to be the cause of any issues between this commission or myself and the government and the sunshine. But I'm reading through this government and the sunshine draft from the Florida, or not draft, but the document from the state of Florida. And there's just some questions that I have, whether we're actually, are we a research and fact-finding? Do we have anything with regard to decision-making? Are we doing this to give to Gail, and then the government and the sunshine is out of our hands? I'm trying to get a little bit better understanding. I know the comment was made last meeting when we had talked about going through and looking at a house and, trying to get some idea as to, I guess, what our thoughts and opinions would be as to whether the house was even viable to continue to move forward toward a historic designation. And I know if there were two or more or whatever, from what I can see, the spirit of the law is that two or more get together. It does not necessarily constitute a violation of the law, as long as they're not discussing amongst themselves that the benefits or the non-benefits of this particular visit. I mean, if we go in, we say, well, gee, look, that's some really nice yellow baseboard, and the next person says, well, I think it'd look better blue. I'm not trying to be funny about this. I'm just trying to have a better understanding how we conduct the business without each one of us going to a property individually, which is going to be a real inconvenience to the property owner. How can we do this? How can we accomplish this as a fact-finding or an investigative committee, and not be involved in the government and the sunshine? We go in there and look around and zip our lips, or what do we do?
There is a process, George. If someone's, are you talking about
applying for designation, what the process is then, and what our responsibilities would entail? Because Tammy can send you an email that tells you specifically what our responsibilities as a commission.
Well, I have that. I'm trying to figure out where the line's drawn, though.
Mr. Childress, this is a quasi-judicial board, and there will be matters that come up where you cannot go to a house and look at that sort of stuff. What I would suggest is that you come and sit down with me and Mrs. Lyons and let us go over some of these things with you. So we'll set up a meeting if that works for you.
Yeah, as I say, I understand the spirit of the
Yeah.
law, but it's kind of hard to walk around the streets of Vero Beach with handcuffs on. And I understand the purpose of it and where it came from originally, but I just wonder where we are, because we're really not decision-making. We're not a rule-making body. All we're doing is we're presenting what we have investigated for consideration by the planning department or by ultimately the city commission.
Right. And
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll set up a meeting and talk to you about it.
Yeah, I'd like to understand where I am.
There's a lot of issues with the Sunshine Law.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Tammy.
yeah.
Can someone bring a copy of the list to the next meeting?
The 1990 you're talking
Survey?
about?
Yes,
Yeah. Would you do that, Gail? Sure. Okay.
bring a copy.
I think there's an email
We don't.
copy.
Do we
if you
have
want.
that posted on the website?
I think so.
The list.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can send the link to Tammy and she can send it to all of us if it's on there, too. And you want a hard copy though, too, as well.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I
If
already
you can,
have
I
one.
mean, I can print it out myself. I mean, if you just send me the email, I'll get it.
Okay.
Just want to take a look and see what's going on.
All right. Anything further?
When will our next meeting be?
Our next meeting is the second Thursday of each month. I don't have that, so I don't have that date. That's why that was my answer. My phone's down here. Well, let's go ahead and. What date? Do you have a calendar in front of you?
Is it November 12th? Because we have that for Warren. Is that when he's coming?
No, our next meeting is
Oh,
in
that's
October.
I'm missing
October the
October
8th.
altogether.
October 8th. Yes, we just made that easy. So it's the second Thursday of every month. And it looks like we are going to have a lot to talk about again. This was good. Well, if
All
there's.
right. I just want to say, please send your ideas as far as like I said, strictly just information, and I wanted to get a start. Input as much as you want, so we can move forward at least on the smaller informational brochure, introductory brochure.
And work on reading over the quotes and getting us the design of the plaque. That would be great if we can finalize and get that going next month. Okay. All right. If nothing further, we'll adjourn.
Thank you.